Hi, everybody. This is Kathy L. Murphy, the Pulpit Queen, reporting live from my little cabin in the woods, Murphy's Law. And I have here today with me author Mandy Haynes, who is an artist. She publishes and is the editor of our Reading Nation magazine. There is nothing Mandy can't do. She helps do book covers, format books. She has her own publishing house. But I want to focus today on her being an author, because I think so many times with her volunteering to help me with the Pulpit Queens and Timber Guys Book Club, people forget just how great an author she is. In fact, I fully believe that later on down the road, probably long after I'm gone, that she'll be remembered as one of the contemporary writers of this time. So, Mandy Haynes, don't you dare say a word. I can brag on you all I want, because I am the luckiest woman in the world to have you come to me and volunteer to help me run my annual book club convention, then come up with a brilliant idea of starting Reading Nation magazine. And the fact that you are one of the most outstanding authors that I have on my list, I'm not kidding you. And your new book, Oliver, is exceptional. And it's so great. I'm making it a 2023 Book of the Month. Yep, you don't know this, but I am, because I want people to know you as an author. Now, before you speak, I'm going to tell you about what all I've got here. I've got this book, which is Not So Fast, which is a book, I don't even know where I got it. I found it online, but I don't even know if it's still in print, but Mandy is featured in this book. And this was done when, Mandy? It's an anthology.
over 10 years ago.
She is not an overnight sensation, you all. She's been working at this a long time, and I want everybody to know this. And I honestly think this is Nashville Authors, right? So,
Yeah.
And then we've got Walking the Wrong Way Home was the first book that I picked of yours, wasn't it? I think it was. And she came in towards the end of the year, so I made her a bonus pick. And I'm telling you, this should have been a book of the month, because her short story collection, I have been a big fan of short stories since I was back in my lowly bookseller days. I loved Ellen Gilchrist. There's a lot of authors I've followed for years that just write short stories. In fact, we had a literary fiction section in the bookstore, independent bookstore that I worked for as a buyer and children's manager in Shreveport and Louisiana and Longview, Texas. And I would just go through these short story collections, because when you're a busy person, these are books that you can keep in the car or your purse and pick up and put down, but they are exceptional stories and they ring so true and authentic. You've got to read Walking the Wrong Way Home. Mandy did an exceptional job, fantastic cover. And then she blew us away because she came out with this book, Sharp as a Serpent's Tooth, Eva and Other Stories. And again, this cover, haunting. It's absolutely beautiful. It's got wonderful blurbs from Sunny Brewer and Susan Cushman, who are both Pulpit Queen authors. But Mandy Haynes is a writer to watch. And then, if she didn't do all this volunteer work with me, she goes, you know what? You did last year, the Pulpit Queen Presents, which was a anthology of our Pulpit Queen and Timber Guy authors book for our 20th anniversary. She goes, why don't we do another one with Works in Progress? And let's call it that. And I go, how can we get this done in a year? Honey, she got it done. And we have how many stories in this book, Mandy?
59.
59 of our stories. And I will tell you, the cover is exceptional. Everything about this book is wonderful. We have a great lineup and table of contents. There's a foreword by me. There's an introduction by Mandy Haynes. The afterword is by Jonathan Hote. And, you know, it's absolutely one of the best collections I've ever read. And it's all of our authors. So every author that is in our International Public Queen should read this and should get all their fan base to read it, because these books are our livelihood, folks. She volunteers to help run the Pulpit Queens, but this is her livelihood as an author. So I just wanted to end the National Poetry Month with a celebration of everything Mandy Haynes, because she is a terrific author. And so tell us a little bit about this journey of these books, and then we're going to talk about your poetry.
Oh my gosh. So the anthology, The Not So Fast, there's another one called Comfort Foods. It's a horror anthology, which I am not even.
I've got to get it. Is it still available?
I think you might. And there's another, Soundtrack Not Included was the first one. And I had like 4 or 5 stories in Soundtrack Not Included. It was our Nashville Writers Group.
Let's put this out there, because I want people to recognize you as an author. So many people go, thank you, Mandy, for this and the Pulpit Queens, but never are you recognized as an author. And it's important for people to know that the authors and the people that come forth to help me run the book club have real other jobs, and you juggle a lot. You're you write for the Amelia Island magazine. And you've got all kinds of features in different places. In fact, you're doing an event today. What's the event you're doing?
Oh, well, I am filling in at the vendor table for Drag Queen Bingo.
Which is amazing. And I wish I could be there. But aren't you doing one with Julia Daly? When's that?
Oh, yeah, I'm doing a podcast with Julia Davy, the author's over 50. She's got a lot of our authors on her list.
Waiting for that call. Waiting for that call, people. But Julia Daly is one of her authors, and I am thrilled about that. So please share that information so we can get it out there to all the Pulpit Queens and Timber guys. And but let's talk about this journey. I mean, what made you want to become a writer, Mandy?
Well, like so many writers, I love to read and started reading really young. And, I used to think I want a book with my name on it just because I loved books so much and they were so powerful. And I thought, I want one of those. Like, I want my name on one of those when I was little. Like, I want people to read my stories because I love telling. I was always a storyteller. But gosh, so I didn't really. It was when my son went to college, I think is when I think he was in college when I first started the first submission, which was kind of a fluke. I coached about Elkin, just a little writers group I happened to accidentally really kind of find in Lebanon, Tennessee. So it wasn't even close to me. I had to drive an hour, but the group of people were so cool. And Elkin, come to find out, I didn't know, but he was an English professor. So he's the one that submitted my first story, and it won first place. And it was called The Number One, and it was Vol State, so a college. So and he was like, and I was like, thinking, oh, well, he submitted it and it's not. And he was like, Mandy, we take submissions from all over the country. Like this, and I mean, I made some money on it, whatever. So I was like, woohoo. And then Vanderbilt had a thing and I would submit stories to them. And then when the Lebanon Writers Group stopped meeting, Elkin passed and other things happened and we just quit meeting. I joined a Nashville Writers Group and submitted some stuff to anthologies there. And, just kind of, it's just sort of how I was working full time and doing all kinds of stuff. So I couldn't really put as much focus on writing as I wanted. But I was happy just having stories, published here and there.
Have that kind of acknowledgement and accolades from submitting your first, that is noteworthy, because in this day and age with everybody I think they say 1 out of every 2 people want to write a book. I think everybody wants to write a book. And get them published and make the New York Times bestsellers. But what is important for the readers and listeners to hear today, here's my cat trying to get some attention, is that what is important is that you tell the story that you've got in your soul. You know, you tell the story that is begging to get out. You do not worry about the awards, who publishes your book, but that's the kind of books that I'm looking for. The story that has not been told before, and one in such a unique and authentic voice that it haunts you. And your stories haunt me because every time I read them, I'm like, I forget, I lose all sense of time. I'm lost in the story. And when I read Oliver, I just got my hard copy of Oliver. I read it again, and I was just, it's such a profound experience to read this book. That's why I'm making a book club selection, because
You're giving me chill bumps. Like,
well, I'm telling you, the books that I pick are all 5 diamonds in the Pulpwood Queen tiara, and you're our number one jewel. I'm going to tell you, you're our diamond in our tiara, and I'm very proud of this book. And I'm also, we talked about our next girlfriend weekend, and because of your book, and because so many of our books seem to be having a moon theme, I just found another one that I can't wait to read that's got a moon title. The theme for our girlfriend weekend, all inspired by Oliver, is Over the Moon, because we're picking over the moon authors for our 2023 book club selection. So you have to be a pick. And I want people to know that this is the standard of writing that I'm looking for. This is the type of stories that I'm looking for, ones that I have not heard from before, and one that I'm hearing from about people that do not have the advantages of, moneyed schooling or, privilege, people that have stories to tell that will enlighten and educate us, and also make us more empathetic to other people's lives, no matter where they come from, their place in the world. So I'm done talking about you. I'm going to tell you, you're number one as far as I'm concerned. And that's the only people that I would really want under my Beauty in the Book umbrella, because that's what it is. That was the name of my shop. Everything's under my Beauty in the Book umbrella, because I want beautiful stories put out into the world so we can see all the good that can come from reading stories. And you're the number one for me. So now,
well, thank you, Kathy.
back to your writing and books. If anybody's listening to this today, I want them to, when they first think of you, I want them to think of you as author, and to acknowledge that you are an author. And I know Oliver is getting incredible reviews from our book club members and non-book club members. I mean, every review I've been sharing is like outstanding. I mean, I would give anything for that kind of review on my book, but I do think that everybody's lives will, and then everybody's going to know, this is what I'm looking for. You're a perfect example. I've always said To Kill a Mockingbird was my number one book, but in today's time, I'm going to say it's Mandy Haynes' books, because what we need to know is we need to have stories that are going to change the way we see the world, and quit judging people, quit listen to their story, walk in their shoes, like Atticus Finch said in To Kill a Mockingbird. But it's time that we get into this next century, and you're taking us there, Mandy. So where did this idea come from for Oliver? Tell us where that story came from.
Well, when I was growing up, there was a couple in my town, in the little town of Greenbrier, that they seem so old to me then, and it's like, oh, they're probably younger than I am now. Their names are Clyde and Elizabeth, and they had some, I hate the whole intellectual disabilities, or whatever the PC word is, the way to say it now. The disabilities, it's like, it's more like abilities, because they just have they can see things that we don't, because they're not all ego, and they're not worried about materialistic stuff most of the time. But so they started, a couple that I grew up with, Elizabeth worked in the cafeteria and Clyde was a janitor. And I just loved them. They were married and they lived in a house by themselves. So they were very high functioning, intelligent people. But people would make fun of them. They were bullied by adults would kind of say things, and then kids at the school were just rude to Clyde, So it's like, it's always been in my mind. I thought, I want to write a story about what was Clyde like when he was younger. And then when I worked in pediatric cardiology, we had Down's clinic on Thursdays. And so I got to meet a lot of kids with Down syndrome and their families, and a lot of high functioning and intelligent kids. And I'm like, yeah, and then met some kids with Williams syndrome. That's kind of the same kind of thing. They just blew me away. So Oliver, I would say Oliver really started when I was little watching Clyde. But then after all the other kids that I worked with, and I just thought, I want to write because some of my stories are a little hard. I mean, there's a little hard bump in there. There's a little bump in that story.
That's
but
life.
That's
life.
It is. That's right. So he was a short story, and I was going to have him in Walking the Wrong Way Home, I thought, because I actually started on him. Like, he's been done now, probably 10 years ago when I started him. And then I really thought, no, I want to make him longer. So I was thinking a novel. But when I tried to do novel, it just seemed like I was adding filler, and I didn't want to dilute any of the story. So I decided to make it a novella. So that's my first novella, standalone novella.
And it's fantastic. And that's another thing. That's what poetry does. It distills a story down to the fewest, most precious words to tell in sometimes just a few sentences, an entire story. And that's why I'm celebrating it this week. And that's why I'm going to be bringing, authors like Mandy and other authors within our group that are poets into our 2023 book club, because I think poets, this is my perception, but I believe that poets make the best writers because every word has an importance that helps tell the story in the simplest manner. It's not the one that uses the biggest words or has the most education or whatever. I think this is something, it's God-given gifts to the storytellers that are out there. Some of the best storytellers in the world, they come from all walks of life. And so I want to mention, you talked about in your book about how, and I don't know what the correct word for, when I was in school, it was called special ed. And I've learned since then that special education was for mentally handicapped, or they thought everybody they lumped in this class, there was, they weren't exact, but I'm learning now that a lot of these people that were in those classes were autistic, and they had different types of learning disabilities that put them in the class and labeled them with something that they were, I hate to say this word, stupid. And I will tell you, one of the most biggest lessons, and I'm writing about it in my book, was when I was a senior in high school. I was in French class. Madame Basham, our teacher, had us one semester go out to the schools and teach basic French 2 classes. And the 2 classes that I were given to teach to was 6th graders, which is another story. But it was the junior high special education, that's what they called it at the time, class. And me and the head cheerleader from my school, Becky McDonald, and I went, and it was a life-changing experience for me, because when I go out to the 6th graders, I'm going to tell you, they were little smartasses, and they would always heckle me and give me a hard time. Can you sing this, the national anthem of France? And I hadn't learned that. And I had a student say, well, I can. And then I would go to this class, and those children, and they were from 7th to 9th grade. They were in preteens, they hung on every word. And they wanted to learn so much. And they were so proud when they could sing Frere Jacques. And they were so proud. Bonjour, Mademoiselle Murphy. They really got, and when I left there, to this day, I cry when I think about it, because I went in there with all those stereotypical
preconceived notions of
I did not want to do it, because I thought, and I left there with and so to this day, I say, all of us have a handicap, and some of it is being introverted, like I was as a child, or coming from poverty, or coming from privilege where you're mistreated. Some of it shows, a lot of it doesn't. So if anything, don't judge a book by its cover. And that's what I say about you, Mandy Haynes. I mean, I don't want you to ever apologize for anything about yourself, because as far as I'm concerned, you are at the top of your game. So now on to your poetry. You wrote a poem, and you're going to read 2 of them. And tell us about this.
So when I started meeting with the very first writers club, the one in Lebanon that Elkin was in, Elkin was a musician, and so he was a songwriter. And Dee Dee and Robert Stone, haikus, like this man, his haikus are incredible. And then Robert Knowles was the other. He would write some fun, limericks, so it was really more poetry. So I just went because this group, they were a lot older than me, and they were Dee Dee was only 10 years older than me, but I don't know. I just felt like I just found this group of really eclectic, I don't know. And I always thought, I never write poetry, but it was fun. So we ended up turning that into, I said, well, what about if we take the same, we would throw out words, and then we'd have 10 minutes to write short story, poem, or whatever, and you had to use all those words. And so so we write all different stuff. But anyway, some of the poetry, it's I enjoyed it. So I have a ton, golly, and I would pull those out actually and use them, some of the lines in the poems and some of the short stories that I've written. But I was like, I'm not a poet. I'm not a poet. Well, Vanderbilt has a writing, used to, they don't do it anymore, which makes this kind of even cooler, because this was the last competition that they had. It was 2011. And every time I did a short story, I won first place. And it was to the point where it was pretty funny. And my doctors I worked with and would tease me about, because they'd get the magazine and they were like, oh, of course, Mandy's in here teasing. Well, I've written a poem about my dad, because there were a lot of things that were going on. And it was really just for, I did it for therapy. And I sent it in, and I thought it'll never win. And I sent in a story. My poem won first place in the Vanderbilt competition. And my story got an honorable mention. But so it's wow, that was amazing. So then I submitted a few more poems, and they'd been published in some different anthologies. I don't even have any of them. I don't have copies of any of the things that my poetry's in, but I did find searching, because it's easy to find it, because I can Google it. It's on the website. So it's I can Google it, and I found another one that's not as heavy as searching to read today. It's a little more I'm
excited to hear you read them. And I'm going to be searching for all those other anthologies to read. And if you could make a list of those and post them on Facebook, so we can share them, because somebody may find a copy. Can you share these poems? Are they in a book anywhere?
They are, but I don't know. I don't have any copies. I have a couple that were in gosh, I can't even think of the name of that. They were little small literary magazines. I don't even know.
Well,
I
maybe
thought that I
somebody
would
will
always
come
have one,
forth
but
and have a copy and want to share. So I'm going to let you read your poetry. And nobody has a better voice than Mandy Haynes, because
aw.
at Nashville, Tennesseeing, I mean, it's so everybody always falls in love with you when they hear your voice. So I'm really looking forward to this.
Dang, Kathy, you just made my day today.
Good. You need your day made. Okay.
Okay, so the title of this one is called Searching. So, searching. I was raised by an alcoholic father, an atheist, an artist, a hard worker. At the tender age of 9, I would sit with him at the kitchen table, a bottle of Johnny Walker Red between us. I would watch him drink while he explained to me why there was no God. Once I asked him, if you don't believe in God, then why are you afraid of the dark? I mean, if there's no God, then there's no devil, right? I was just a little kid then and I didn't understand. Not all demons are that obvious, running around in red suits, carrying pitchforks. Some, my grandfather, hid behind alcohol and suicide. Years later, my daddy divorced my mother. He remarried, found religion, is even a deacon at his church, whatever the hell that means. Now he ends our calls with, come to church on Sunday, God loves you. It's all I can do to keep from screaming. I mean to my stepmother, call her cow pie face behind her back. Stare directly into her eyes until she turns away. I refuse to give her a chance. I listened to rumors about her before she met my daddy, but who am I to judge? I left home before I turned 16. I'm 40 years old now. I have a wonderful son and many reasons to be thankful. I remind myself every day. But when I see the old man my daddy has become, I'm overcome with a sadness so heavy, it's almost too much to carry. We're so much alike, this Bible thumping stranger and me. It has nothing to do with our brown eyes or high cheekbones, our artistic abilities, or the need to make something with our hands. We are both just two lost children searching for our fathers.
That's it. That's what I look for. I mean, Mandy, that's beautiful.
You know, when they called me, because the editor, Wayne Woods, who's also an author and he's a journalist for like for Nashville, and he was the editor of the Vanderbilt House Organ. The first time I won, I got the email that said, congratulations. And then the next year when I won first place, I got an email that said, hold on a second, I have a surprise. And I thought, who is this is that guy? So then it was, you won again, like 2 years in a row. And he was like, you know, that's amazing. It never happens. Third year, I got a phone call. He was like, and they would take your photo for it. It was a big thing. And then for the third one, when he called me when I won, he was like, 3 years in a row.
That's
like,
unbelievable.
He actually wrote a blurb for Walking the Wrong Way Home. Wayne Woods did. He was the sweetest thing. And I actually left the campus and went and had a picture made for the day I threw the rock, which is one of the stories on Walking the Wrong Way Home. It won first place for me. So when the poem won, he called me and he was like, I didn't know you wrote poetry. He was so funny. I didn't know you wrote poetry. And then I'd actually forgotten that I'd sent it in. And he was like, well, I've got good news. And I hope you think it's good news, but it won. And then I was like, oh, and then my stomach, my heart was like, oh, because it's 100% truth. Like, this is real. Like, you know, not the fiction you can hide, even though it's truth in there, you can hide behind it. And he said, so that's the good news is you won, but you know, the bad news is it's going to be published. Are you okay with that? And I said, I need to think about it. So I called him the next day and I said, you know what, do it. My daddy will never read it. He'll never, like nobody in my family will ever, you know, so just go ahead and do it. I got so many calls and emails like the priest at the chapel at Vanderbilt called me to tell me how much she loved it and thanked me for being brave to do that and how many people had helped, and they had copies everywhere. I was actually interviewed and I was on this podcast for East Nashville Now, and it was local author and it was a big deal. My dad heard the podcast because I read and that's how he found out. And he was like, because he and my stepmother, who I love now. And it's like when I say call her cow pie face, Y'all, I was in my dang 40s when my mom and dad got divorced. In my late 30s, I was not a little kid. I was so mean to her. And not because I always wanted my mom and dad to get divorced. They did not, just that was good. But he got married so quick. And I thought, Daddy, I just wanted him to live a little bit, But he's really happy now. And he loves going to that church. And everybody there loves him. And it's real to him. At first, I was scared. I was like, you're just replacing the alcohol with church. It's another thing you're not, but that's not true. It's all good. So when he read, and it stopped at the part about an atheist had hung up on the thing he was listening to, and he just was like, what? But he did used to say, I knew it wasn't true when he used to say it, but he did used to say he's an atheist. It's like, sorry, it's true, but it's all good.
One day you're way older from now, you're going to have to write a memoir, because your stories, they need to be known, because they're going to speak to so many people. They are. So I love searching. I want a copy of it. I'm going to find it somewhere. So, I would love to share that poem with everybody as we end National Poetry Month, but you've got another one you want to share with us.
So this one's not as heavy. This one's a little bit light. You and I have talked about this guy. It's called The X. You've heard stories about this guy. But it is funny how when I wrote this, it's like, I couldn't believe the feedback I got from it. Okay, so The X. Everything I needed to know about him, I learned on that first walk we took together. But I was so swept up in the moment, too flattered by all the attention to take notice. More important than the way the sun made the golden flecks sparkle in his hazel eyes, or the way he smiled at me, dazzling me with his perfect porcelain crowns, and even more important than the way he reached for my hand, telling me I was the one he'd been searching for, was the way he stepped directly on those fat, innocent caterpillars, squishing them underneath his expensive tasseled loafers.
That's what happens when you write a poem. It's the whole story is right there. But our heart and our mind don't always match,
It's funny when we called it off, and I just kept thinking about that first walk, and it really did. It bothered me so bad. I was stepping over him, I was scooting him, and he just was like,
squishing.
Oh, like didn't even notice. And it's funny, it was 4 years later that just came back to me, that first walk when we walked in the park, and I was like, wow. So I had to write it.
I always tell young people, because I've worked with youth my whole life, if you want to know what somebody's really like, watch them around children, animals, and old people. And that tells you everything. If you see somebody kick a dog, run.
Oh my, and when you think, if it would have been a dog, it would have been a deal breaker right then. These caterpillars, and he probably stepped on 3. So that first one, I thought maybe he didn't notice. The second one, I thought maybe he didn't notice. And that third one, that's when I was like, I think he doesn't even care. But it's like I didn't even, because I was so caught up, and he was so cute. And it was like, and then I just thought, oh, well, but I could not forget the caterpillars. I just couldn't forget those. I love those little fat, fuzzy things.
Yeah, we don't see those red flags flying until, later, unfortunately. But I want to read more, Mandy. You don't have any more you can share with us?
I have on my old computer in a folder, I probably have about 230 poems.
Let's make those.
We used to do them with the writers group. And then, so of course, growing up, or not growing up, but living in Nashville the last few years, all these, great songwriters, like I wrote a few songs that with Chris Stapleton's, when he plays rock, and the Johnson Brothers, Greg on guitar. Greg and I have written some songs, and I'm just like, hope one day Chris pulls that out of his folder, and sings that. And Mike Henderson, we got together. He was like, Mandy, let's write. You're such a great writer. Let's write some songs. I mean, Mike Henderson is like one of the best songwriters in Nashville. Like golly, I don't know how many Grammys he's won. And but we get together and I
You
didn't
got to take those poems and make them into a book. I'm serious, because for me, when I pick an author, I want to know where they come from. I want to read their entire body of work. So when I pick an author, I go back and I try to read the ones that I missed. Like I'm reading Mrs. Ford right now, which was, Deborah was just featured, and we had picked her book Ruby Falls, and
Yeah.
I had not read Mrs. Ford, and then I'm just kind of get blown away because they're totally two different stories, and I'm just so caught up in, if you love an author, read their entire body of work. And it used to be that way with publishing. When a publisher picked a book, they followed the trajectory of the writers, like Pat Conroy's a good example. All through the years, all of his books, I've read them all. And when you read them all, then you get a better understanding of, we don't think the same as 40 as we do at, what are you now, 53?
I'll be 53 in August.
53 in August. Yeah, I'll be 66 in August. That's hard to believe. But I've written poetry, but I am too scared to share anything that I ever wrote. And this was when I was younger. And I think I know Shah Rukh Khan, who I admire so much, the Bollywood actor, he secretly writes poetry. I want to read it because
well, no, I want to get it out after, and gosh, like with Rita Quillen and all these great,
yes, Rita
Quillen,
Suzanne Kamada,
Jade. It's like I thought I should get because I would think I'm going to try to write songs. Well, they all turned into poems, which some of those turned into short stories. So it's like I need to go back.
You do.
I haven't looked in that folder of that, the file of poems, and
here's something you could do.
Years.
At the beginning of every chapter, you could do a poem. And then I just think take the poem and then have a story. I think I would love to do that. I've never seen anybody do it.
That's a good idea.
I had a girl years ago, an author years ago, that wrote about her experience being a Peace Corps worker in Africa. She went from, I can't remember where she was from now, Pennsylvania or something, straight out of college. She went into the Peace Corps and she went to Africa. And all through her book, not at the beginning of the chapter, but within the stories that she told in each chapter, she included poetry. It was a memoir poetry story of her time in Africa. It was the best book. I need to get that book out again and reread it because it was
I have a ton of horrible, some of them are so bad. I'm sitting here thinking now, I was like, some of them are
you just wait. It's just kind of like, okay, you take a picture of yourself when you're like, I remember my senior picture in high school. I hated it because I just thought, I look at it now and go, damn, I look gorgeous. But at the time, I hated that picture. And it's kind of like that with I bet you anything with your poetry. I would love to read it because you may be reading something into it so personal that you hate it, but it may speak to somebody else. I want to read your poetry. For everybody out there, please comment and tell us, do we want to read Mandy's poetry? I know we all have to read all of her, and please, you guys, check out all of her books. Where can we find all your website?
Oh, it's MandyHaynes.com.
MandyHaynes.com. And from now on, whenever you introduce Mandy Haynes, please say that she's an author. She gets ignored a lot on being introduced as, being with the Pulpwood Queens, but not the fact that her real job is she's an author. And I think it's important that we end National Poetry Month with her poetry, with her story, and acknowledging her contribution to literature today. So thank you, Mandy.
Well, thank you, Kathy.
I hope you have a wonderful life, and nobody's a bigger cheerleader for you than me, because I see so much of a younger version of myself in you. And we have a lot of similarities and we have differences. I mean, mostly I could almost be your mother. I mean, I could be your mother because you had a child at a young age. I could, but I was um, an old mom. I waited to have my kids in my 30s. So I will end with saying that go to mandyhaynes.com. Also, please check out readingnationmagazine.com, because Mandy is, for everybody that's an author, you can advertise in it for $25 a page. This is limited. I mean, it will eventually go back up, but
May 1st, I'm going back up, but I have options. If people can't afford the $50 for the graphics and all the stuff that goes with the, because it's so much more than just the ad. I thought, well, okay, if you just want to add in the magazine, it's over 96,000 views, so in the magazine alone, it's a live magazine with live links. I will do those for $25. I just can't spend all the time making the graphics, those video individual customized graphics for each page. But if you want that I share to all the social media sites, then you can order that for $50. So I'm giving people an option.
And I do not know any magazine in the country that offers this rate for, we're almost at 100,000 in people that have clicked on to read the magazine. 100,000, and we've just been going a little over a year with your magazine. And the May issue is coming up. Who's on the cover this month?
Marilyn Rosting.
Oh my God.
Crazy to leave you. Yeah, her new book. Yeah.
Oh
so
my
I made
God.
like 3 mock-ups of that, because it's like, it's just, and I just love her to death. She's so, and everybody loves her.
She is the biggest champion for our organization, and she is so damn funny. And during the time of COVID, if you haven't read her books and the new book, is it Crazy About You?
Crazy to Leave You.
Crazy to Leave You. Crazy to Leave You. You need to read her book. She's got 3 books now, because they will not only have you laughing out loud, the way her posts, everything that she does, she's a natural born comedian, and she has totally changed. It's easy to make people cry, but it's really hard to make them laugh and laugh out loud. And I can only think of just 2 or 3 authors that do that. And she's pretty much number one these days for me. So, I'm excited. And I've got to get you in my Figment of My Imagination story. So I'm finishing that up this week, and I'll.
That's right. You're our If Our Pets Could Talk for May.
In fact, my story, come here, you little scamp. This is Figment of My Imagination. And Figment demands a lot of attention, but is very shy. And that's why she got the name Figment, because she hid from me under my dresser for 3 days when I first got her. Now I can't keep her out of my lap.
She's beautiful.
Fig for short, and she's a rescue cat. My friend Barbara brought me. So say hi. Meow.
Oh, my dogs will start barking. Pearl was like, burp her ears.
I hope you like that dog chair I did with you, because it reminded me of Pearl, her dog. Her little dogs they have so much personality, but Pearl, oh my goodness, that little girl, she is adorable. So anyway, we got to get busy, Mandy, and I know you have a busy weekend. Join me tomorrow night for our book and film club, and the calendar of events. I've got to update it this weekend, but we've got a lot new things happening coming up with all of our Mama Cats book club, Cool Cats book club. We've got book and film club, writers club. We're doing a lot of programs online, and it's Mandy that's volunteered to help me with all this stuff. So thank you, Mandy. I applaud you, and I bow to my queen. And this ends our celebration of National Poetry Month, but it does not end our reading poetry. Read poetry every day. It can be as beautiful as passages in the Bible, to your daily affirmations, to your favorite authors. And I've got a bevy of authors now within the Pulpit Queens that are poets, and they're incredible. So thank you, Mandy Haynes. You are a shero of mine. Okay.
Thank you, Kathy.
Love you. Everybody watch and share, share, share. It's all about the story. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.